Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome back to another review. Today I'm looking at one of my favourite Hornby steam locomotives. Today's steam locomotive then is this. It is the Hornby B12, but in the BR Black, which is a livery I've never tried with this model. It is one of my favourite models though. The LNER green one that I have is just fantastic. If you want to see my review of that, you can check it out up there. But I am feeling a little bit nervous about this one, and I'll tell you why. So the RRP for this model, Hornby's full price for this is £194.99, so it's the best part of £200. And a typical retailer price is usually around the £145 mark. But recently at Hatton's, they had a real sale of these, and they were going for just £79. It seemed too good to be true, so I actually ordered two of them. One for me, one to review, and then one to give away on a future series of Sam's Trains Live. Now, speaking of seeming too good to be true, there have been a few reports surfacing of these being faulty. Model Railways Unlimited is a really good channel, and he did a great analysis into what was actually wrong with his B12, and if you want to see that video, I'll pop up a link there. Now, it might be that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this at all, and in which case that's awesome, but it might be that there are faults with these, and maybe that's why they were reduced so much. Maybe that's why Hornby sold them off so cheaply. So I've skipped forward with this review. I'm going to do it today because I want to know whether or not this B12 is faulty or not, and I'll probably want to test my other one that I've bought to give away as well. So I think we'll enjoy the first half because it's a beautiful loco, but please do keep your fingers crossed that this is a good runner as well. So let's take a look. Let's see what the BR Black Hornby B12 is like. Alright, so I don't tend to buy BR Black liveries if there's a choice, because I do tend to find the livery a tiny bit plain. But as you can see from the front of this box, this loco does have a fair bit of lining on it, and lining makes any livery okay, if you ask me. So this is definitely one that I was looking to try. As you can also see, it's in quite an early British Railways livery. In fact, it doesn't even have the BR crest on the tender yet, which suggests that this model is a snapshot from shortly after nationalisation. Anyway, let me show you the version of the model I've got more specifically then. So this one is R3545. It is the British Railways B12 class locomotive, and it is number 61556. And there's also quite a bit of information on the back of the box, so I'll just show you that. So first of all, you can see the classification here, which was 4P or 3F, so not that powerful, I suppose, for their size. And then in the middle there is a history all about the B12s, so if you want to pause and read that, you can do. And then on the very end of the box, you can see Hornby's drawings of the B12. I do like looking at locomotive drawings. And these are dated 2015, so around 7 years ago now. I can't believe it's been that long since these models came out, although that is the time when they were drawn. I suppose the models will have come out a bit later than that. Anyway, are you ready then? Let's take our first look at the BR Black B12. Hopefully the perfectly good running BR Black B12. And there it is. Oh yes. And there is a good reason why these are among my favourite models, not just because of how great they look, but because of the high quality of these locos. In fact, they have die-cast boilers. Yeah, die-cast boilers. And at £194, that's the latest RRP, they should indeed have die-cast boilers and every other feature besides. But when these first were released, they were quite a lot cheaper than that, and that made them very good value, I thought. Not so much anymore, but you know, £79, that's definitely good value. Anyway, we've got some bits of paper here, so what's this? This one is about fitting the guard irons. So they go at the front if you want to fit them at the front, and also at the back of the tender. I assume that they could cause trouble with the front bogie or the running of the loco, which is probably why they're not fitted as standard. So I probably won't bother fitting those, but you could if you wanted a more realistic experience. And then we've got the operating and maintenance instructions for the B12. Let's take a look. So a bit about lubrication, very standard stuff really. Fitting accessories, not sure why the guard irons weren't covered in this booklet, but fair enough. Body removal, yeah, it's not too difficult with this. Couple of screws. I suppose you do have to remove the tender to do that though, because one of the screws is at the back, annoyingly. Connecting and disconnecting the tender, close coupling options, DCC ready, decoder goes in the tender, the usual stuff. And then brake rods, it shows you where those go, and the brake rods are not fitted as standard this time, so they are an optional extra if you want them. Right, let's see what we get then with this loco. I think there is quite a hefty accessories bag here by the looks of it, so let's take a quick look at that. So it's most of what was pointed out in the various instructions. You've got 4 guard irons, so front and back, brake rigging for loco and tender, NEM coupling for the front of the loco. It looks like we've got some vacuum pipes in there as well. I don't see any screw link couplings this time though. Are they fitted to the model? No, so I don't think this model includes screw link couplings, which is a shame because some locos do have those and they are nice to see actually. They look great when they're fitted. Anyway, let's have a look. How do I open this? Seems to be quite good packaging this time. There's a lot of foam on the inside of the sleeve here, which is great. So let's see if that did its job and protected the loco from damage. Let's have a look. Alright, so the first noticeable thing is the weight of this loco. Like I say, it's got the die-cast boiler, so it weighs an incredible amount for its size. The tender doesn't. No, the tender's pretty lightweight because it is mostly plastic, but of course that's not too important because it is the loco that does all of the heavy lifting. Anyway, this is my first look at a B12 in a livery other than the LNER green. The LNER green one is the only one I've ever owned of this model so far. I've got to say this thing looks wonderful, doesn't it? Beautiful livery, great looking loco, and the quality seems to be pretty good at a glance. We'll take a better look at that in just a moment and I'll confirm or deny whether that is the case. But on first glance, yeah, it looks like a really, really handsome model. And it feels like a real quality model as well because, like I say, a lot of metal on this. So a little history on the class in real life and then we'll take a much closer look at this and some of its details. The B12 actually started life as the Class S69 on the Great Eastern Railway, sorry, I'm immature, when they were introduced to the design of SD Holden in 1911. They were intended for express passenger work and the class actually helped to replace the older Claude Hamilton locomotives, which as you probably know was a class of 440s, which by that time was struggling with the larger trains of the era. Bigger and better 440s had been the initial choice, but the axle load would have been too great and so they had to develop the wheel configuration and add the additional driving wheels in order to spread the load a little bit. Hence the similar appearance though to the D16 design. They definitely do look similar. Just over 80 locomotives were produced in total between 1911 and 1928, and after grouping the S69s were inherited by the LNER where they were reclassified into B12s and then 10 more of them were even produced over the next 5 years or so. After that, most of the class were used for passenger work into the BR era, although by 1961 the entirety of the class had by then been withdrawn. Nearly all of the class were scrapped unfortunately, although one example does survive under preservation. So there she is, up close and personal for you, the gorgeous Hornby B12 in the British Railways black. And this is a superb model. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, isn't it? And you can probably tell that already. The quality is really good as well. Very, very high quality loco. Not 100% perfect. I mean, some of the handrail holders are mispainted a little bit. The loco was covered in oil getting it out of the box. I've just spent the last few minutes cleaning it, but no lasting damage done by that. And there are 1 or 2 components that have visible glue marks around them, but those are reasonably mild by Hornby's usual standards. Of course, this sort of thing would be completely unacceptable if you'd paid £195 for this thing, and that's why you don't buy Hornby stuff at the full price, because it's almost never worth it, in my opinion. But at £79, this is a fantastic quality loco with some really lovely details as well. And even the join between the boiler and the chassis is really nice and subtle. I think on my LNER green one, that gap was quite distracting, but here the two parts mesh together really nicely, which is just what you'd want really. So this does have the die-cast boiler, which is a very large piece. It's a large boiler, so that brings the loco a lot of weight. The finish on it is okay, but I think we have even seen plastic boilers from other manufacturers that have a better finish. So perhaps this loco could have done with a top coat of some sort of varnish just to improve the finish a little bit, but it's certainly not bad. While the boiler is die-cast, the running plate unfortunately is just plastic, but I've held my ruler up to each part of it and it is perfectly straight. It isn't suffering from any of Hornby's trademarked warping, so that's okay. And of course, because of the boiler, the weight is pretty good. 353 grams is the weight of this, which is more than a Hornby 8F, very heavy loco, but not the heaviest in the world. I mean, the Bachmann Atlantics, which are actually smaller locos than these, did weigh more than this does. So perhaps a die-cast running plate would have really made the weight amazing, but the weight is pretty good as it is. So let's start taking a look at some of the detailing and decoration. As you can see, the lining on this model is fantastic. The boiler banding looks wonderful. Yeah, very, very precise, I think. The splashes are nicely decorated too. The decoration on the whole is very, very accurate. As you can see, you've got the nice builder's plate above the middle splasher there, which I like. Yeah, it seems to be a good print. And of course, the side of the cab is nicely decorated as well. Underneath the cab, you've got lining around the steps as well as the separately painted pipework. And across the running plate, there is some lining as well, where there are also more lined steps. The front of the smoke box door is nicely detailed as well. As you can see, a lot of the moulded detail is picked out in the silver paint there. And this loco actually has a smoke box dart fitted to it. My original green B12, the LNER one, never had one. Straight out of the box, couldn't find the thing, never was able to refit it. I had to sort of buy my own and put it on there. This one, it's got it straight out of the box, so that's a plus on the quality. And then you've got the nicely painted buffer beam at the front, as you can see. And on there is a hook for a coupling that you don't get. Oh, that's a shame. Come on, Hornby. But you do get metal buffers, which are sprung. I do like sprung buffers, and the tender buffers, of course, are sprung as well. As for the detailing, it is pretty good. So we've got wire handrails across the boiler and smoke box. There is a representation of the valve gear between the frames, which is absolutely fantastic. How much of an improvement is that over locos that just have a blank space or a gap between the frames? That is a wonderful detail. I like that a lot. The safety valves here are made of metal, and I'm not sure about the whistle, but possibly it is. But they are not bare polished metal, unfortunately. They are just painted, so they lose the quality finish, unfortunately. And the same is true of the reverser rod over on the other side. I'm not sure if it's metal or plastic, but it doesn't have the proper metallic finish. It's just sort of painted, so it doesn't look as good as the raw metal ones, in my opinion. And when you consider the extra glue marks around it, yes, a little bit of a feeble effect just there. Over on the other side, we have this very nicely moulded and separately fitted Westinghouse. Unpainted, of course, as per this livery, but on some versions of the model, those do get the lining. The wheels look fantastic. As you can see, they are fully moulded, so you've got the realistic lathe holes in the centres of each wheel. That looks wonderful. And the coupling rods are nice and fine and realistic as well, which is great. The top of the cab has plenty of rivet detailing, as well as the opening hatch on top to let a bit of air in for the crew. That does move back and forth, which is cool. And then the glazing around the cab is really nice as well. The front windows are lined, as you can see. Well, they've got a frame. I suppose it's more of a frame than lining. But they're all nice and flush. Yeah, good glazing. And then the cab interior is okay. I mean, it's quite an open cab, so the detail here is quite important. And a lot of the pipework has been painted, and the regulator seems to be separately fitted because it stands out quite nicely. But I don't know, the gauges look a little bit blank, don't they, without any of the detailing on there. I think we've seen better cabs, but the cab is certainly acceptable. It's a good cab, probably will do the job as the loco runs past and you just catch a glimpse of it, so no major complaint there really. These tenders are really small, cute things, aren't they? I do love the B12 tender, and I think it's a very similar tender on the D16 as well. So the decoration is again similarly good. Yeah, nice lining around the tender, and the British Railways lettering is nicely applied. All of the axle boxes and spring detailing is there, of course, and there is a water scoop fitted on the underframe, and of course you do have the option of fitting the brake rigging down there if you want to. You've got a nice coal load, which I believe is separately fitted, reasonably convincing looking, I think. You've got separately fitted handrails on the tender, as well as some nice looking cab controls, which I like. Wire handrails on the back, separately fitted lamp irons which look good quality, nice and straight, and then more detailing on the buffer beam. This time the vacuum pipe is pre-fitted, and more sprung buffers like I said, and the NEM tension lock coupling is fitted to the back of the tender so that you're ready to go, you can couple to something straight away. So there you have it, the B12. It is a beautiful, beautiful model, isn't it? Overall, really high quality. I'm a massive fan of Hornby's decision to make the boiler die-cast on this loco. It just feels better. Obviously, it weighs quite a lot more, and it contributes to a higher quality finish, although admittedly we have seen better finishes on more modern locos, even if the boilers are made of plastic. But overall, it's a decent loco, I think. So that's great. As we already knew, the level of detail is fantastic, but how is the performance? The mechanisms, in fact, I even know are decent, but am I going to find motor problems when I test this loco? I really hope not, but it is now time to find out. So there she is, the Hornby B12 down onto the track, and the first test has already been done and I filmed it, and I will show you that in just a second. Next, I want to show you a little bit about the mechanism. Now, I do want to make it absolutely clear that the testing, the performance testing that you're going to see today was all filmed before the disassembly. I just want to underline that just in case anybody gets confused. So mechanically, the loco on paper is pretty good. The loco does have tender pickups on all of its tender wheels, but none of them are making good contact, to the point where if you actually lift the loco off the track while power is applied, the loco is more or less completely dead, which means that very few of the tender pickups are actually helping to improve the performance of the loco. So really what I will need to do, if I decide to keep the model, and I'm not 100% convinced on that yet, is to disassemble the tender and fix the pickups so that they're actually touching the wheels properly. So that means that the loco driving wheels, which also have pickups on them, are doing the lion's share of the work here. Now the loco's base keeper plate is easily removable with some screws, and it is electrically connected with those spring-loaded contacts, which is a nice good quality feature, and these are proper turned metal bearings on the driving wheels, which is also a high quality feature. Here is the chassis, which you access by undoing 2 screws plus a few others to get access to the screws. And there is the motor, which is a large 5-pole skew-wound motor with dual flywheels on it, as you can see. Should be a good motor, that, and I have known this type of motor work very well indeed. I don't want to give too much away, but perhaps that's not the case today. And then the gauging is more or less what you'd expect, 14.2mm back to back, which is about standard for a Hornby loco. Now then, let's move on and let me show you the performance test. It starts well, so enjoy that part. Okay, moment of truth. Now the thing is that if this has the motor fault that I'm worried about, it will still work. The loco will run, but it will be inconsistent, the speed may change, and it will also draw more current than it should, so I will have to test all of that. But I suppose the first milestone is to see whether the loco actually works, so let's give it some juice and see. Okay, and of course at this point it has not been running yet, so I will probably have to do that before drawing any conclusions. But yeah, the loco seems to work. At 50% speed, doesn't seem dreadfully fast. I would say that speed is sensible. Maybe it's going slower than it should because of a motor fault. Maybe it is just geared to run sensibly. I can't actually remember now what my other B12 is like. But it doesn't seem too bad. No, it seems about right, I would say. Let's see what the crawl is like. How is the torque at the low speed? Let's see. I'm just easing power up on the controller. Oh yes, look at that. Straight out of the box without any running in. That looks like a real good crawl. Yeah, look at that, wow. So I will have to test the current draw from the loco just to verify it, but I wouldn't say there is anything wrong with the way this is performing. Look at that. Seems quiet, smooth, the speed doesn't seem to be drastically slow or anything. It seemed slightly sluggish when I first started it, but that's to be expected when a loco's not been running. So I'm going to go ahead and say at the moment there's no sign of any issues, which is great. That's very good news. But I will double check. I will double check that. So let's yes, I think I'll run in first, then I'll do the current draw checks just to make sure everything's okay, and then when we come back I'll be able to say whether or not the loco is faulty. I don't think it is. Alright, let's see how it handles the curves. At the moment it is nice and smooth, as you can see. No massive slowdown around the curves, although there is something strange going on with the tender because I saw that jump across that second radius, so let's watch that again. Yeah, definitely a bit of a jump there, but it's not derailing, so I guess I'll leave that for the time being. So, I mean, it seems okay. I can't see any issues at the moment. I do wonder whether it's going a bit slower than my green one, but I could just be overthinking things. So I'll let it run in, we'll do some more tests, and then I'll come back and show you what it's like after it's been run in. Alright, wish me luck, I'll see you shortly. Well folks, it's not looking good. The current tests show that the loco was drawing about 300 milliamps, which is much more than it should be. I've got the other one testing as well now because I suspect they're faulty. But yeah, look, things are getting worse. It's now so slow and it's lost so much torque that it's barely able to get around the second radius curve anymore. Yeah, that ain't right. And they both seem to be that way, unfortunately. So I'm going to run the new B12s past you now. There goes the second one at half speed, 50. That one's only been running a few seconds. The one on the outside line is the one that started running in, as you saw a minute ago. That's the speed that that one runs at 50% speed. And now I'm going to run my green one past at 50% speed and show you what the difference is. Ready? Wow, way faster. So here is the second B12 running on the rolling road, and it's got the ammeter on the right there. 206, 207 milliamps, fluctuating a little bit. Let's see what B12-1 is measuring. Alright, this one's been running for about 10 minutes longer, and this one's at closer to 300 milliamps, and it's turning its wheels much more slowly than B12 number 2. So that one is more faulty now than it was when it started running 10 or 15 minutes ago. And now let me show you what my LNER green B12 is like, one that I don't consider to be faulty. So this one is running at about twice the speed as the last B12, and yet it's drawing close to half the amount of power that the other B12 was drawing. So there can be absolutely no doubt that the two new B12s that I've bought are both faulty. There's something wrong with both of them. Okay, and one more demo then. Here is the new B12 on the layout. That almost stopped around the second radius. Now I'll put my green one on at the same setting. Okay, here it comes, noticeably faster at 50. And almost no slowing down on the curve there. And this thing hasn't done that much running, and yet the whole die-cast boiler is noticeably very warm, which is not normal. I've owned a Hornby B12 with a die-cast boiler for many years. I've never known the die-cast boiler get noticeably warm like that before. Definitely something wrong there. Alright, running in has concluded. That, by the way, is still 50% speed. It's going way slower now than it was. Look at that, that's 50. Right, so seriously faulty, very clearly. I mean, that was faster then in reverse, but there is no torque. If I put my finger there and run it up to 50%, that's it, that's 50%. See? Absolutely no torque there at all. I have to turn it even up higher. That's 70, just starting to turn there we go, 70 speed. But at 50, completely dead. So, faulty, we know that, definitely faulty. Both of my examples are. I've spoken to others have faulty models. Mike's Movies is one of them, but there are plenty of others as well. So my question is, who knew about this, if anybody? Did Hornby know that they were supplying faulty models to Hattons or any other retailer that had got these at such a low price? Could that be the reason why these were so cheap? If that is the case, were the retailers made aware of the faults? Alternatively, are Hornby just completely unaware that this is a problem and they just got unlucky and happened to reduce these down to a really low price for the retailers, and it turned out they were faulty? Maybe they've been sat around for too long. I mean, it looks bad on Hornby, but I have no evidence at the moment whether or not they knew about this. But I've contacted Hattons and I've contacted Hornby to ask whether or not either of them were aware of these issues, and I will let you know what they say when I found out. Anyway, the pulling power isn't too bad, would you believe? It's actually better than the green B12 that I've got. So I think that one came in at 0.3 newtons. This one was 0.37. I can only assume that when I hooked up the testing device, because the wheels were going much more slowly on this one and they weren't just slipping, that perhaps the pulling power seemed better. But I think when we actually couple up these 6 LNE Arctiques from Hornby, I think we will see that this is far from the better of the two pullers. But let's see what the crawl is like. I mean, it's a bit pointless, but we'll do it just so we've got it on record. So the slow speed crawl is still great. Yeah, I think that is crawling there. So the slow speed performance is fine. But it's just a disaster in other areas. And by the way, yes, running in was a nightmare because it kept stopping on the express points because the tender pickups are so bad. So that's another issue, but that, you know, that's fixable. I would be able to, I'd be willing to live with that. The faulty motor, I can't deal with. So, well, I can replace it, but I'm not willing to because I don't have that many of them. And I'm not using one of my valuable replacement motors on a brand new loco. So at least one of these is going back. I think the one I intended to give away clearly is not in a fit state to be given away. So that one at the very least will be going back, I expect. This one I might decide to keep. I might decide to do a video on investigating it. I know Mike wants me to pull the motor apart and investigate it, and I want to as well. So as soon as I've heard back from Hornby and Hattons, I'll probably decide to keep this one and investigate, and then maybe we'll get one of my replacement motors. Look at that, what a state. Right, yes, let's go a couple to the coaches. Yeah, this loco is what you call rate ill. Yeah, anyway, let's see what happens. I've lost interest at this point. I just, yeah, it's just a major disappointment. There it goes at 50%. Let's watch it die. In fact, it might die now when it goes across the points. Yeah. Yeah, go on. Shouldn't do that. If the tender pickups were correctly adjusted, it would never do that. Alright, sit back folks, this could take a while. 50% speed. There we go. And I doubt it will save itself from that. It may do. But call me Mr. Pedantic, this is not the way you'd expect a real B12 to behave when it reaches a curve. I mean, it's not what you call realistic performance, is it? Especially after what my green B12 is capable of. And it's not stalled, by the way, folks. Well, it is, it's stopped. But it's not like the power's been cut off. If I go to my controller and turn it up, it will actually go again. It will go. So it's not as though it's just lost power. In fact, let me do that for you. Right, so it's currently at 50. I'm going to turn it up to 60. Have we got movement? Yeah, starting to move. 70. Just about able to do it. So it's now at 70. Let's have the green one do it at 50. So here comes the green B12 at 50% speed. Same model, same motor even. Different example. Wow, kind of looks different, doesn't it? Alright, we're back on the black one now. Again, 50% speed. So, you know, I don't know, have they changed? I mean, the motor looks the same. It appears to be the same motor from the outside, but it's possible that the innards have been changed. I don't believe that though, because this is just, you know, this can't be desirable. No manufacturer would change the motor, see this sort of performance and think, yeah, that's right. So it's got to be faulty, right? Hasn't it? It's got to be. Yeah. 50% speed. And I mean, this is not a big train, you know, and we've just seen the green one do this absolutely perfectly. So the performance is almost non-existent, really, isn't it? I mean, this is not usable. This is not in any way usable. Even on its own, the Loco is horribly unrealistic running along. So the message has to be, do not buy a Hornby B12. It could be just that the reduced ones were faulty. I don't know if something funny's going on and that's why they were reduced, but I don't know that at the moment, so I would have to say don't buy a Hornby B12. Even if the ones on Hornby.com for £195, even if those are not faulty, I still say don't buy one, because it's not worth the risk, and even if they are fine, they're not worth £195, particularly if this issue develops later on down the line for you. So, I mean, this is a pretty cool running session right here. We are watching a Loco run along at 50% speed, and it's been a long time, and I haven't had to change the shot. Shall we see if I can finish this shot? Well, let's see if I can finish this review using just this shot of the Loco running along. So let's go and do some ratings, and I'll come back to you. So you can't take these ratings as gospel, because, I mean, this is quite a good score that I'm showing right now, but clearly this is a completely non-recommended locomotive at the moment until I've got more information. The level of detail though, fantastic. I've given it 5-star. Yeah, it's well painted, well detailed, you know, all the works, very good, 5-star. Performance, well, I review the examples that I have, so mine is still stalled on the layout, so 1 star. I do know though that the B12s are capable of being excellent runners. My green example is a 5-star performer. So if you were to buy one of these, there's a chance that you would get that sort of performance, but again, I don't recommend it based on the current track record. Pulling power, pretty good, 23 coaches, yeah, that's all right. The mechanism, again, I should stress this is purely theoretical, because a Loco that doesn't work properly obviously has something seriously mechanically wrong with it. But in terms of the specs of the mechanism, it is a 5-star. All-wheel pickups, like in this case, half of them aren't working, but they are there. Proper bearings on the driving axles, a 5-pole motor with dual flywheels. Again, that motor is a load of rubbish in my example, but when you get a good one, they are decent. Quality then, 3-star. Yeah, overall the quality is all right. 1 or 2 parts that don't look perfect, and there is a little bit of glue here and there, but overall it's a decent quality Loco with the die-cast, etc. And obviously there is a quality issue though with the motor, to say the very least, so I've had to knock it down a couple of stars there. Value for money then, loads of different prices out there. I mean, £194.99 I think is quite unreasonable, not as unreasonable as some, because there is a lot of die-cast on this, but it would still suck to have to pay that kind of money when previously these models have been around for much, much less than that. But either way, yeah, at £79 that's considerably better, so 4-star. Overall then, that is 7.15 out of 10. There it goes into the ranking. Again, you can't trust this position in the ranking because everything else you can see on the screen works, and this doesn't. So again, I've just done this because I always do it in my reviews. Please don't go out and buy one of these B12s expecting a 7.15 locomotive, because if you get a faulty one, you'll just get 7.15 points of disappointment. So I don't recommend it. So the train is inching ever closer to the station platform. The passengers have been told that the train is due to arrive within the next 30 minutes or so. And in fact, the passengers at the front of the train, in the front coaches, they could arrive within the next 5 minutes or so. The platform's only there. But the folks at the back of the train will either have to walk up the train towards the front of it, or just wait until their carriage reaches the station. But actually this is quite a novel new idea, because this train actually won't have to stop at the station. It can just keep going at 50% throttle, and the passengers can just get on and get off. You know, they can sit back if they don't like the look of a certain coach and just, you know, wait till a better one comes along. Or have we broken down entirely now? I'm not sure. Anyway, this is excruciating. I don't care what happens to this Loco. I'm going to let it sit there and suffer as long as it needs. I think it has actually finally stopped now though, so probably should go and rescue it. So thank you for watching, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this review of the marvellous Hornby B12. Just before I do sign off, I have heard back from Hattons who have said that these B12s were not supplied as faulty items, they were just supplied as normal items. So make of that what you will. According to Hattons, they were not aware that these were faulty. I'm yet to hear back from Hornby, but I will update you on that if and when I do. Really disappointing. It seemed too good to be true at such a good price, and indeed it was. Both of mine horribly faulty, and plenty of reports of others with faulty models as well. So if you bought one and yours is good, let me know. I'd be interested to know how many are like this. And also, well done, congratulations, you won the lottery. Sadly, I and those who have models like mine did not, and in fact mine seems a lot worse than the others that I've seen, so that's great, isn't it? Very typical. Right, well, thanks for watching. Tatty bye.